Test, test, test. Test, test, test. for television, Dylan?
Left hand, right hand.
And then, your little
No, I know.
where you want that?
It's exactly.
I didn't see the sunrise once. It is good person.
Hopefully. Interesting. I might.
On yet? Yet?
Or it's wrong colour or something along those lines. G'day, Mark. How frustrating. Something that should be so simple. No, Brendan talks to you about that. No, well, last I spoke to Sarah, John, sorry, not Sarah, that's not fair. John, just a while back, I know they were looking at it. How far is it? Because we need to have a discussion, I had a discussion with them generally about the renewal of their rules as it is. Sorry? Raw food's much better food.
No, he can turn the oven off.
They were hot, they just weren't.
Oh no, that's
He
right.
just turned the wrong oven on. So we're glad you're back now.
Oh, that's a bit in the issue.
Oh, no, it had
Yeah,
be 40
it wasn't
degrees
even
heat
an oven, it was a pile of food I turned on, so
Don't worry.
he's been pretty kind to me there, I think.
KPIs were not met.
Oh, that's
Really?
not tonight.
Whilst I sat down on that side.
KPIs will not make.
Yeah.
There will be if you flick the oven.
Well, you're getting text messages in the middle of the meeting saying, I hope the chicken's ready after this.
Actually, I'm going to see if there is anything in the oven.
There is.
There is, so I'm going to.
Don't trust them.
Do not trust them.
Party pies.
Party.
Still there from last week.
Guys,
We uploaded it.
credibility.
Still preloading it.
None of any good feels here.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Tomorrow.
I think, didn't John Cowell ruin it for everyone?
He did, so yeah, we've still got photos to take.
Because he
And you
blackened the
just,
whole lot.
but no, you guys just continued on the same vein.
They're more aligned to your team.
I actually tend to agree. We have split on it. And duplication. Oh yeah, not that. Yes, no, I agree. Oh, I think that one's probably.
Is it like this?
There's
no need for that one to be on.
Yeah, I'll just tell them.
That'd be really good. No, it won't be soon either.
Good afternoon, councillors. I declare this meeting open. Welcome along to you, officers and members of the public. Under announcements, I have received letters from the Lishman Health Foundation thanking the city for its assistance with the summer concert series. The Lishman Health Foundation was one of the charities that the hat was passed around at. They raised $860 that day, Councillor Cook. Very good. And we've also received a certificate of appreciation from them for the assistance and sponsorship given by the city towards their motoring extravaganza, which raised $26,000. So well done to the Lishman Health Foundation. We also, with the CBD Revitalisation Survey, we have over 800 survey responses back. So we're just about to close that off. And what we'll be doing is compiling the information, analysing that, preparing a report. There'll be a public forum organised, and then recommendations from that will come back to the council for consideration. So terrific outcome with that survey. Councillor Steele is an apology for tonight, and Councillor Hayward is on leave. Declarations of interest. In addition to those there, Councillor Cook has declared an impartiality interest with respect to item 12.1 as he's an affiliate member of the RSL. Are there any further declarations, councillors, to what we have printed? And Councillor Cook. Thank you. We have no questions. Confirmation of the previous minutes. Councillor Cook, Councillor Jones, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Do we have any petitions, councillors? (8.4) Council Delegate Report. We have a report there from Councillor Cook. Someone prepared to move that recommendation? Councillor Steck, Councillor Giles, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thanks very much, Councillor Cook, for your report. We'll just deal with these items as they come up, councillors, because there's so few of them. So 10.2.1, so I'm prepared to move that recommendation. Councillor Giles, Councillor Steck. So what we'll do is, if there's any debate on this, if not, I'll put it and then we'll organise to see who wants to go. So all in favour of it? That's carried unanimously. Now, who wishes to attend?
Sir, can I just ask a question, please?
Sure.
Councillor McGuinness spoke last time, and that was a more strategic notice of review, so I'm just thinking that Councillor McGuinness should go again, if he has the time.
Would you like to attend this, Councillor McGuinness?
Sorry, what are the dates?
While he thinks about that.
I won't be here. I'm
You're
not available.
not available. Okay, that's fine. Anyone else wish to go? Shall we change to support the attendance of a councillor and the CEO or his nominated delegate? And then we'll see what happens. Do you wish to go, Councillor McGuell? All right. Any further? Thank you, Councillor Kelly. So Councillor Jones, Councillor Kelly. Number 2 would be Councillor McGuell and the CEO or his nominated delegate. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. (10.4.1). So I'm prepared to move that. Councillor Cook, second up. Councillor Giles, all in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.4.2. So I'm prepared to move. Sure, Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did ask, but I didn't get a response. I just wanted to know that when we don't put in the infrastructure, we don't ask for, and I understand that it's not required, the infrastructure for sewerage, who in in the end, down in years to come, is responsible for putting the deep sewerage pipes internally, infrastructure in, and at what cost? Is it the city?
Property owners.
Okay.
Property owners.
Property owners, thank you.
Now, I have no idea what the cost would be, Councillor McCleary.
I didn't ask the cost, just so long as it wasn't us.
So I'm prepared to move this.
Sorry, sir, can I just ask a question also?
Councillor Steck.
Supplementary question. I had a look at the structure plan and I just have to ask, what is the entire impact on the entire airport for the future? Because now that the airport committee has been resolved, I just wonder, if we continue with the airport the way it is, will we have opportunity in the future, sir, for a BizJet to land in this city? Because currently we do not. So I just want to know how this development impacts on our airport.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Steck. Mr. CEO, I'm not sure if any of the officers would have the response to that. My understanding is the runway limitations are significant and the runway doesn't go into this property, but would you like to respond to Councillor Steck's query?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, you're correct. The runway is the biggest limitation we've got on there at the moment. Obviously, there was some earlier proposals in relation to the realignment of the highway, etc., to extend the runway. That's still out there and it's still an opportunity to consider further on. But at this stage, the proposal that's there won't affect that. It's just about creating some extra space for the new hangars.
Councillor Cook, are you moving this?
Quite happy to move it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Is there a seconder?
I'm happy to second it, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Steck. Is there going to be any debate on this, councillors? I'll put it all in favour. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. (11.1). Someone prepared to move Councillor Kelly's request. Councillor Jones, second up. Councillor McCleary, all in favour. That's carried unanimously. 12.1. Councillor Steck.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to move the motion. I think it's very self-explanatory.
Is there a seconder?
Mr. Mayor, so that we can
Thank
talk
you.
about it.
Thank you. Councillor Steck.
Thank you, sir. I have had several meetings with the RSL and the RSL committee, and it is very, very clear that the community itself does a lot of the heavy lifting for the Anzac Day commemorations. And without the community, I'm sorry to say, but we wouldn't have the Anzac Day commemorations as successful as they are. And this is a concern for the RSL, and it should be also for council, because the way the RSL is speaking now, they may have to cut back on some of the matters that they are putting forward in the sense of sound and lighting, staging, all that sort of thing. And indeed, if we don't assist, we very may look at a function of commemorations that will be reduced. And I don't think that's a valuable thing for our community at all. So I just think that, as I said, the financial details is in the report that I've submitted in my motion on notice. I have also tabled a letter from the President, John Gelmy, asking for council support. And I would think that this particular function of council, of the entirety of its city and its people, and commemorations of past and present service people, I think that this is a worthy cause. And I think that council spends a lot of money on other programs, but this in itself is probably of one of the highest importance of council to consider. So I urge you to ask from myself and from the President, unanimously support this, and I leave it over to council to consider.
Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't talk on the matter because it's pretty well self-explanatory. I would like to ask a question, if I may, though.
Sure.
I'd like to know if the RSL has lodged any funding grants with council, and if so, what was the outcome?
Yep.
Thank you.
CEO.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm not aware of any in recent times. I think the last funding request was about the upgrade for the cenotaph. Was a capital grant, but I'm not sure of any operational grant money that's been applied for.
Speaker against? Question? Yep.
I'd
Councillor
like,
Morris.
like to know was it the RSL that initiated the request for funds, or was it Councillor Steck?
As I've said, I've had several meetings, and it was asked by me by the RSL if that was an avenue that I could pursue, and I said I would.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against this question?
Sorry, I've forgotten.
You're on.
Is there any reason why the RSL hasn't come to the events committee? Because obviously this is something that we would like to assist with and would like to be able to consider. And as I said last week, I think it's important to have a level playing field with these things, and there is a process to go through. And while I would support every endeavour for Anzac Day, I am loath to support it because it hasn't gone through the events funding process. And at this late stage, I do agree with the officer's comments that it would be very difficult to pull off an event at this late stage with the extra funding. So yeah, just a few concerns there.
Yeah, I did call the Mr. Jolmy. I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago when this matter was first raised. He was more concerned about next year's Anzac Day, which is the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I, not this year's. Is there a speaker against this? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Anzac is very, very close to my heart. My grandfather trained the soldiers, and there's a gentleman there going to say that it's out of order.
Take a seat, Councillor McCleary. I think Councillor Cook.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. I understood that Councillor Warnock was speaking against it, so we've had two speakers in a row against it.
I took her as more of a question rather than a debate. Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor McCleary.
And I was very pleased to hear that we're looking at the 100th anniversary. I would definitely support it going through the events committee for that. So tonight, I find that the budget itself is, I would like to see that more formalised, and I think we need time to discuss it and go through the correct channels. And that is the only reason why I won't be supporting this motion tonight.
Thank you. Speaker 4. Councillor Steck, close the debate, please.
Thank you, sir. Well, I can already see that some views, although respected, are a little bit disappointing, because this council is a can-do council, and at the very least this should be sent to the budget, not to the events committee. It's very, very clearly requesting that this become a standalone event of council, and therefore it should be a standalone event considered within the budget. It is not an event. Let's get that very clear. Events committees are events. This is a commemoration of World War I, World War II, Borneo, Vietnam, all of those places, of all those service people and personnel. This is not an event and cannot be considered as an event. And whilst I thank Councillor McCleary for your personal service reckoning of your family, many of us in this community have had families that are service people. And I just simply say this is a standalone event, and whilst the Mayor is correct, there is concerns of next year's event because it's 100 years of celebration, and rightly so. But it is also the community saying to you, this is not an event. They don't want to put it with the events committee. And I thought we were a can-do council anyway, because only last round we accepted to bring soccer and women's soccer to this community. This is not a new event. This is an occurrence that happens in memory of respect, in memory of suffering, in memory of giving, and memory of their service to this country, let alone this community, this state. And I urge councillors to reconsider their options and reconsider their views, because as far as I can see, we spend an awful load of money on some things that you ought to reconsider. This is $20,000 mere of our budget. And I can't say anything more, because if you don't vote for this, at the very least, I'm saying to you, send it back to the budget for an annual amount. It's not an event. It is a community spirit, and that's it.
All in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's lost. That's lost. So 4 were Councillor Steck, Cook and Giles. The rest were against. So we move to item 15, I think, Jamie. So can I have someone move we go behind closed doors? Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Jones, all in favour? It's carried unanimously. I invite members of the public to depart. Thank you very much for your attendance.